So here we are. It's introducing this. It's my approach, or our approach here at Legacy Christian Academy. When I was, Adam Housley came to my house last night and put up my Christmas lights. And he had his helper, Sammy, with him. And when I came to Legacy, Amy was pregnant with Sammy. So here she is. She's in the 5th grade. And she told me she's about to be 11 years old. I don't know if you've ever met Sammy. She's got personality plus, and she's real sharp. And I love it. So every time I talk to her, I learn something, you know. And so it's fun. But thinking about Adam and how I got to come to Legacy, and I was telling the story that Kathy and I were praying, and we were praying Lord's direction about what we were going to do. And the Lord's, and literally, we got off of our knees after praying, and I get a phone call from Adam. And this is, 11, 12 years ago. And he says, hey, would you consider coming to Legacy Christian Academy and teaching? We'd talked, and I'd done some consulting with him before. And he said, would you be willing? And I said, okay, I'll be praying about it. So I hung up the phone, and Kathy said, okay, if you don't realize this is an answer to prayer, I don't know how plain it has to be. And so it's nice to see the Lord's direction in bringing us here to Legacy Christian Academy, and I enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started into this. So you have in your notes, the notes that I gave you, and on the last page there's a quote by C.S. Lewis, and it really is kind of the essence of everything that's here. And during prayer this morning, I heard it so well. But C.S. Lewis, and this is a quote that I have outside my door, outside my room. Got it on a big banner. And it's really my favorite quote from C.S. Lewis because of what it says. And look, the idea of becoming a Christian and being indwelt by the Holy Spirit, there's an opening of the eyes. And Jesus, when he came, he opened eyes. But there's something else to realize. When Jesus came, he also, Mr. Littlejohn and I talked about this just the other day, he also closed eyes. Just think about that as we get into this. And so remember the Pharisees, as they rejected him, and they said, what you're doing, the miracles you're doing, they said, they attributed them to Satan's power. Now, what's interesting, the charge sheet of Jesus, we know this, Jesus was charged with sorcery. Sorcery was looked at as doing miracles in the power of Satan. And so we look at it from a historical point of view, he was charged with sorcery. One of the reasons they wanted to kill him. But think about that. And Jesus said, now that you're calling the work of God the work of Satan, you will never get this. And remember the woes that he did to the scribes and the Pharisees. I mean, he's telling them that that's not going to happen. And then, of course, part of the plan for him to be executed, to be crucified, for the death, burial, and resurrection. And we're going to get into a little bit of that today, but it's going to really be the focus of the last week. So what we'll address this week, so let me just go through this real quickly because, a good teacher gives you an overview. And I've got a headmaster and a principal sitting there, and if I don't do this right,
We're taking notes, Ronnie.
So why are you or we? Why are we Christians? Why are you a Christian? That's number one. Now, if you look on this, it's like, it says quick discussion. You'll see it right there at the top, close to the top. And it says, how would you answer the question, why are you a Christian? So be thinking about that, and as we get to it, because we're going to come to that. Why are we Christians? The next thing we're going to look at, what's the main point of Christianity? I mean, why are we here? What is the main point of Legacy Christian Academy? I mean, the whole thing, why are we here? The next one is, what exactly is apologetics? What is apologetics? And so we talk about apologetics all the time. And in the age of skepticism that we're living in, the age of skepticism that we're in today, it's amazing how much evidence is coming out for the truthfulness of Christianity. Over and over and over again. I mean, I get overwhelmed with it. And I can't keep up with it. I'll just put it that way. And I get books sent to me all the time, review this book, review this. And I read it and go, wow. I mean, it's just pretty incredible. So what is apologetics? And then this is important to me. What is the biblical approach to apologetics? We're going to look at that, and we're going to spend a pretty good bit of time on looking at just the biblical approach to apologetics. And then, how can we show God exists? Is there a way we can show God exists? But look, I do 4 areas mainly. I look at the existence of God, I look at the reliability of the Bible, I look at the deity of Jesus Christ, and then I look at the historicity of the resurrection. And so if you kind of think of 4 weeks, that's kind of what we're doing. But first week we're doing a lot of introduction. Okay, does that make sense? And so as we get into this, so let me ask the question. Let me go through week 2. Can we trust the Bible? Is the New Testament real history? What do non-Christian sources say? Okay, I think it's very interesting to see if I take away the Bible, can I find the story? And of course the answer is yes. And by the way, spoiler alert, I'm going to say yes. I think we can trust it. Just got a new book in the mail during Christmas holiday or Thanksgiving holidays. See, I'm already looking forward to Christmas. The Thanksgiving holidays by a friend of mine, Peter Williams, who's been on campus here many times, a scholar from Cambridge University. And the title of the book is Can We Trust the Gospels? Can We Trust the Gospels? Great book. I mean, some of the newest research that's been out. And so what I said earlier is that the information just keeps coming. And we're in the age of skepticism. I mean, people don't want to believe this. I mean, they really are looking for reasons not to believe instead of reasons to believe. And it blows my mind that that's where we're living today. So how can we show that the Bible is reliable? And then week 3, who is Jesus? I think that's very important for us to understand who he is. Not only that, who did he claim to be? The idea of who Jesus is, but who does he claim to be? What are his claims? Does he claim to be the Messiah? Does he claim to be Christ? Does he claim to be God? I got an email from a former student just a few weeks ago, and I get these all the time. I get emails from former students and they ask questions. Sometimes the questions are, can you send me all of your notes? And it's not that easy. That's why we had the full year together. But I got it, and she said, my brother is now not identifying himself as a Christian, and said the reason is he's wondering if Jesus really existed. It blows me away. I mean, okay, let's get rid of Christianity. Let's just get. Jesus never existed, okay? That idea. And look, that's becoming popular today. So it's something we got to look at. So who did he claim to be? What are the alternatives of who he is? Who could he be? How is he known in his day? What did they call him in his day? What did the disciples call him? Then what do they call him after the resurrection? I mean, you see this. How is he known in the sources, the non-Christian sources that are outside? We're going to look at that. Then did he really exist? We got to look at, which is, C.S. Lewis kind of thought that this was kind of ridiculous to even think of. But we live in a day now to where we have to approach that. And so week 4, did Jesus really rise from the dead? What are the facts of the resurrection? We can look at the facts of the resurrection, the real facts of the resurrection. Then the next one is, what is exactly the gospel? We'll hint at it today a little bit. And then how can we share the gospel? I think that's what everybody wants to know. It's how can we share the gospel? And then, is it real? Well, here's the question I'm going to ask. What is apologetics? So what is apologetics? Okay. Let me make sure where I am. Okay, what is apologetics? Okay, here's what it is. Giving reasons for your beliefs. It's me giving reasons for my beliefs, or why I believe what I believe. It's another way to look at it. When I got out of college, there was very few what we would call apologetics books. Now they're everywhere. I mean, people are really writing these things, and Christian universities are training young men and young women, and it's amazing how many women are getting into the apologetics ministries today, and I think they're doing a phenomenal job. But the idea of apologetics is, why do we believe what we believe? It's one thing to know what we believe, but why do we believe it? And I think that's one of the big important questions. Hebrews 11:1 says this, and I have this at the back of my room, it's on a wooden plaque now. Originally it was in a glass. It was a glass frame, and it was written and etched on the glass. And then when we moved into the new building, and we used these hooks, you remember the hooks that we had to use? And I had, what were they called? Command strips, whatever they were. So I used that hook, put it on there, had it up there, and I was teaching one day, and of course the hook failed, and boom, the thing breaks. You know, and one of the sharp kids said, "Looks like we lost faith." You know? So it's really pretty good. You know? So, so now it's in wood. Okay, so but it says this. Hebrews 11:1 tells me what faith is. And in this verse it says, faith is reality of what is hoped for. It's the proof of what is not seen. Now, I want you to get this, because a lot of times we say, okay, Christianity is all about faith, science is all about facts. You ever heard that? Okay, you get this idea? Well, Christianity is about facts too. Okay, we want to know what it is. Notice this. Faith is the reality. Think of what reality is. Things that are really real. The faith is based in reality. The old King James said, faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. So it's substance and it's evidence. And look, Christianity is true, and I really believe it's true, and I don't just think it's true. I really believe, and I really believe there's good reasons to show that it's true, that there's a lot of, because there's a lot of substance and a lot of evidence. And when I was 17 years old, and I was thinking about all this stuff, and I was in a junior year in high school, and I was asking questions, and when I'd ask questions, some of the people at church would say, well, you don't need to ask questions, just have faith. And, okay, you know, and then the question was, why is that true? You know, why do that? There's no question. And so the idea, and I was literally reading my Bible as the preacher was preaching from Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews 11:1 came up, and I did the nerdiest thing I could do, because R1, and I diagrammed the sentence. The subject is faith. It has a compound predicate nominative, substance and evidence, or reality and proof. And it's proof of what's not seen. Let me ask you this. What is the opposite then of faith? If faith is believing in something that's not seen, what would be the opposite of faith? And I'm going to tell you, it's not doubt. It's not doubt. But a lot of times people think it's, doubt and faith, doubt and faith. Okay? It's this. So what does Paul tell us in 2 Corinthians 5:7? He says, we walk by faith. What's the rest? Not by sight. Yeah, see. And the old idea of seeing is believing. Okay? Now remember in John chapter 20, you remember doubting Thomas? And if I'd been there, he'd doubting Ronnie. I'm telling you, I'm really sure, because I think he takes a bad rap, but I think he also, the idea of doubting Thomas, remember what he said? He said, I'm not going to believe. I mean, he hears Jesus risen from the dead. He says, I'm not going to believe, not until I just see him, but what? I have to what? Touch him. I want to touch the wounds. I want to make sure. I want to see it, feel it for myself. You think about that. And then what does Jesus do? Jesus appears to him. And you know what Thomas does as soon as he appears to him? He falls to his knees and says, my Lord, my God. Now think about that. He's gone from, I don't believe, there's no way in the world. He's awestruck. And Jesus says, here, Thomas, let me have your hand. He goes, no. No, let me have your hand. This is good. And then Jesus says something that's incredible. Remember what he says after that? He tells us, he goes, you believe because you see. He said, blessed are those who will come after you, who will believe having not seen. You get it? Because that's faith. And he says, now, look, you go to Acts chapter 1, and what does Acts chapter 1 says? It says Jesus was alive after the resurrection for 40 days. And it says, Luke says, and he gave many convincing proofs. And look, if that's true, it's there for us. We can glean these things. So keep that in your mind. Let me give you a personal illustration of apologetics. Adam reminded me of this, just last night, because when I first came to Legacy, I tried to get a couple people to go study with me one summer, and so I was going to travel overseas, and And so I asked then headmaster, Dr. Harmon, I said, why don't you go with me? I think it'd be good for you to see what's going on, and see what's really going on in academic circles. Because we get this idea that the really smart people and the guys that are really brilliant in education, they're all atheists. And then all these guys over here kind of on the fringe, well, a few of them are Christians. That's not true. That's not true. It's just really pretty neat what's been going on in the last 50 years. Ryan knows what I'm talking about. And so you get really to see that some of the smartest people I've ever met are Christians just like me. I think that's really cool. It's really cool to see it. So I asked Dr. I said, why don't you go with me? And he said, okay. And he said, well, you think anybody else? I said, yeah, Adam, it'd be good for Adam. And then we had a Bible teacher, Anthony Glenn. I said, it'd be good if he got to go. And so we went. And so we were getting ready to go. We're doing it. Adam reminded me, he locked his keys in the truck right before we left. So we had to get his keys out of the truck so we make it to the airport on time. And I'm a nervous guy. I get early everywhere I go. If you're not 30 minutes early, you're late, And that's the way my mom trained me. So doing that, and so he was ragging on me last night. He goes, yeah, you were just so nervous about it. You thought we were going to be late, And so Dr. Harmon says, hey, somebody upgraded us to fly business class. I've never flown business class before in my life, ever. And I tell you, I never want to go back. So we get, and of course you get to the airport and they put you in the Admirals Club. You do, and for me it was all the free Coke you could drink, and I was that yesterday. And it was really cool to see that. And so they put us on the airplane, and Dr. Harmon and Adam said, are you going to be able to handle this? Because you're really enjoying this too much. And I said, I've never flown up front, So they put us and we get all seated, and you don't have to fight for place, put your luggage or anything else like that. Sit down, and it's an American Airlines flight. It's one of the older planes, but it didn't matter to me. And then I found out that seat folds down, and you can sleep. That's cool. All the things. And then the flight attendant comes and says, would you like, what kind of ice cream do you want for dessert? Ice cream, I'm used to peanuts, So I'm getting excited about being, and then you have your own little TV screen. You have more stuff. I thought, this is going to be fun. And the seat next to me was empty. The plane's full. So I prayed, Lord, please don't let anybody sit in the seat. Please. Now, I'm telling you, I talk about what we do and what we're supposed to do as witnesses, and it's hard for me sometimes. And I have fears about it, okay? And I know what they are, and I try to study about it. And so I'm praying, Lord, please don't let it. So everybody piles in, and the door closes. Nobody's sitting there. And I think, woohoo, this is going to be good. And I think the flight attendant by now is probably getting on her nerves. So I'm asking all kinds of questions. What can I do? What if nobody shows up? Can I jump over there? Just enjoy. Because I don't know if I'm ever going to get back up there. And I'm enjoying this too much. And then all of a sudden they make a little announcement. Then the flight attendant unbuckles, gets up, and they go to the door. They open the door. Here comes a guy come running in. You can tell he's been running through the airport. And guess where he sits? Right next to me. And so it's really cool. So he gets settled down. And so I said, have you ever flown in business? He goes, I fly all the time. He says, it's the only way to go. I said, good, you can show me the roads. So we began to talk, and they brought us our meal, and everything was really good. And so we went through the old things about, what do you do? In our day and age, we're all associated with what we do. Not who we are, but what do you do? It's almost like we're human doings, not human beings. And so as I was talking to him, asked him what he did, and he told me he did some alternative fuel stuff. And what he said, it was over my head. He was coming from Australia, and he's flying to London, and he's going to go up, I think he was going up to Cambridge. And so here he was talking, he's telling me what all he does, and he asked me, what do you do? I said, I teach high school. He asked, what do you teach? And I said, I teach apologetics. He said, I have no idea what that is. And I said, good, because I have no idea what you do. and so we laughed, and we got in, and I said, what it is, apologetics is defending the Christian faith. That's what it is. It's taking the faith and defending it. And here's what he said. He said, oh, you're one of those. Okay? And I said, oh, you don't like high school teachers. He laughed. And when he laughed, I said, tell me what's wrong and why it's bad to be one of those. And he went through it. He started going through it. All right? And it was good. And I'm nervous. I had no idea what kind of questions he was going to ask. And I had to sit and just listen. Okay, I asked one question. I sit and listen. He goes through, and he finally starts going through some stuff. At the end of the whole discussion, he says, and the universe is about 13.75 billion years old. And he goes, and basically that's why you're one of those, you know. And I said, okay. I said, what if I just said, okay, I guess I got to agree with you. You sound like you know a lot more about it. I'll just agree with you. You know, let's say the universe is 13.75 billion years old, right? Is that what you're saying? Yes, it is. And so I said, so the universe began to exist 13.75 billion years ago? Yes, the universe began to exist. Hopefully you see where I'm going. He's telling me the universe began to exist. Does everybody get that? And when I hear that, I don't care about the time. And now look, I know I look like I may have been old enough to have been there when it happened, but I'm not quite old enough to have been there when the universe came into existence. And so I just said, yeah, let's do that. And maybe. Then I said, you know, the law of causality, and he seemed to be scientific, and I said the law of causality isn't it like whatever begins to exist must have a cause? He goes, yeah, and I said, and so the universe began to exist, and I even put the time period on what he said. And I said, so that tells me that the universe must have a cause. And he kind of looked and laughed. He goes, well, yeah, I guess so. And we just started talking. What do you suppose, what could cause the universe to come into existence? And so I used a real simple argument without being argumentative. Does that make sense? And look, I was scared to death. I was scared to death. This guy obviously knew a lot of stuff that I didn't know. But yet we had a good, and I'll tell you, at the end of the day, or at the end of we flew overnight, the next morning we're talking about it, and I got to bring in the resurrection. That would be a great story. He got saved 32,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, but he didn't, you know. But I did get to plant a seed. And it's just a personal illustration of what apologetics really is, giving a reason for why we believe what we believe. And I went from being one of those to somebody had listened to about the resurrection of Jesus. Okay? Because sometimes we're looked at as one of those. Oh, you're one of those. And I want to be somebody who's bringing the truth and shedding the light and letting people have their eyes open. As C.S. Lewis said, I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun has risen, not only because I can see it, but because by it I see everything else. That was so illustrated to me this morning, listening and being with the men's prayer group this morning. All right? So, personal illustration. So, why are you a Christian? Now, this is where I'm asking a question. So, I'm a teacher, so I get to ask questions. All right? So, if I ask you why you're a Christian, does anybody want to venture to say, why are you a Christian? Anybody? That's good. It's a perfect thing. Why are you a Christian? I think it's a great question. I think it's a great question that we should ask. I think we should ask ourselves, why are you a Christian? Or put it this way, why even have a Christian school? If we need to know why we're Christians, why have a Christian school? Does that make sense? And so here's the answer I get, because I get asked this, why would you be a Christian? Why do you teach in a Christian school? Why would you do that? Why did you coach all those years coaching? Why did you coach in a Christian school? I knew I was called to do it, but there's more to it than that. And here it is, and I want you to get this answer. And I think it's really good, because Christianity is true. It really is true. If it wasn't true, I wouldn't be doing this. If I didn't really believe it was true, I wouldn't be doing this. And so the answer, why are we doing Christianity? Why am I a Christian? I'm a Christian because it's real. And faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And I know it's real. Not only because I've got good evidence, but I've also got the testimony of the Holy Spirit within me. And that's why C.S. Lewis said I can see everything else clearly. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So, what is the main point of Christianity? We want to look at what Christianity is. What is its main point? If we get to the idea of the point of Christianity, and I do a triangle in my class. and I got it from a friend of mine, the idea and everything else about getting to those four main areas: God, Bible, Jesus, resurrection. And at the point of a triangle, we have a word that's down there, okay? And it's the idea, the point of Christianity, and I'm going to get to it right here. Let's look at the main point, 1 Corinthians 15. Now, I told you we're going to look at the biblical approach to apologetics, okay? So let's look at this. Paul says, now, brothers, I want to clarify for you, notice I have highlighted or yellow, the gospel. A lot of people, if I ask people what the gospel is, I get the standard answer. The standard answer for what is the gospel is what? What does the word gospel mean? Good news. That's what we always get. It's good news, okay? All that is really a transliteration of the word gospel, which is, we get the word evangelism from the Greek word that's gospel. The evangel is from the Greek word that means good. A-N-G-E-L, right in the middle of evangelism. A-N-G-E-L, angel, a messenger, good message. Okay, so here's the good news. Well, okay, what is the good news? He says, I'm proclaiming you, I want to clarify to you, I proclaimed it to you. You received it, the gospel, and have taken your stand on it, the gospel. You're also saved by it. You'll see what he's saying. He's really making the case over and over again. And he says, if you hold to the message, I proclaim to you, unless you believe for no purpose. The old King James says, unless you believed in vain. You know, you just said you believed it and you went on. And we met people like that. He said, is that it? He says, here's what's really cool. Now he's going to tell me what the gospel is. For I pass on to you as most important. This is the point of Christianity, the most important point. He says, what I also received. Now I believe I know when he received this. And we'll talk about that when we get into the resurrection. Here it is, that Christ died for our sins. You get it? According to the Scriptures. That he was buried, and that he was raised up on the third day, according to the Scripture. So what is the point of Christianity? It's the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus. You see the main point? That's the main point of Christianity. And so, what is the focus of everything as Christians that we're looking at? Why are we celebrating the birth of Jesus? For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. All right? So, why do we celebrate this time period? Because we're anticipating Easter, aren't we? Christmas is an anticipation of what that little baby's going to do. Okay? And we're looking forward to it. And so Christianity, the main point of Christianity is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. Make sure you keep that as your central. Now watch what Paul says, because he goes in further. We get up into verse 17, and he says, and if Christ has not been raised, your faith is, get the word? Worthless. Christ did not rise from the dead. Guess what? All we're doing here is a waste of time. Now look, this is the way I put it. Either Jesus rose from the dead or he didn't. Does everybody get it? Now look, either God exists or he didn't. Either Christianity is true, my Garland day's coming out, or it ain't. You get it? It's either one or the other. Okay? It's either one of those things. And we want to get it to that point. What is the point? Did Jesus rise from the dead or did he not rise from the dead? Now, I think you're going to see there's real good reasons to believe Jesus rose from the dead. Okay? So if Christ has not been raised, your faith is worthless. But Paul goes on in verse 32, and he says, and if that's true, if Christ was not born and everything is wasteless, then he says, we might as well eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. Did you get that? We might as well eat and drink. Now Paul is quoting from Isaiah 22, but he's also quoting the Epicureans of the day. The Epicureans were the atheists of the day that said, look, we have no point and purpose in life. We live and we die, and that's all there is to it. So the Epicureans started out with the idea we might as well enjoy life as much as we can. Let's eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Okay? And then the Epicureans begin to say, okay, but if we eat, drink, and be merry too much, we wake up with hangovers. We eat too much, we get sick. And that's not enjoying life. So then they started putting regulations on themselves. Isn't that interesting? We seem to be wanting boundaries, everywhere we go. So let's eat, drink, and be merry. So where do we proclaim the gospel? What's Acts 1:8 say? Remember Jesus said, You shall be witnesses. He says, stay here in Jerusalem. Tells his disciples, he's getting ready to ascend. He's talking to his disciples. He said, you shall be witnesses for me in Jerusalem, then where? Judea, Samaria, and then where? The end of the world and the rest of the world. Here's what I'm saying. Where are we to be? Now, a lot of people say we got to find our Jerusalem, we got to find our Judea, and I think that's all good. But here's one thing I can take from that scripture. Number one, I'm not in Jerusalem. Right now, I'm not in Jerusalem. Obvious, right? Okay, I've never been to Jerusalem. I know people have, and I'd love to go to something, but I've never been to Jerusalem. I've never been to Judea. I've never been to Samaria. But guess where I am right now? I'm there. I'm in the rest of the world. And we live in a world that travels. I mean, the rest of the world. I was talking to a man on an airplane coming from Australia, going to England via Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. You know, we went from DFW to London Heathrow in 9.5 hours. I mean, think about the age we're living in, the rest of the world. We're all over the place. And so we're to proclaim the gospel everywhere. All right? So why are we doing apologetics? Okay, that's the next thing I think on your sheet there. Why are we doing apologetics? And here's the reason. We're doing it because reason demands that we do it. It's reasonable. And Mr. Keyes did a great job yesterday in chapel. The only thing he did wrong, he took the idea of Coca-Cola. Y'all remember the idea of Coke is the real thing. He did it, went through the history, and then he said, what is the real thing now? And he talked about really good evangelistic message, and very, very, very plain. And one thing he said you're gonna go off to university, and you're gonna think these professors are so smart, and they're gonna persuade you that all this stuff's wrong. And years ago, I started seeing that wasn't true with all university professors. There were a lot, and it was intentional about 50, 60 years ago that these guys got together and said, we need to be able to infiltrate the universities. And a lot of good Christians in the universities now. And so one of the things I want to do is to show our students, and they see video clips of these guys all the time, these guys that are brilliant, and I mean really, really brilliant. And they believe just like we do. Not all professors don't believe, but some do. And I get upset when somebody steers a kid away from his faith, and I get upset when the kid can be steered away from his faith so easily as something like, well, Jesus never existed. Okay? Reason demands it, but the Bible commands it. For example, why believe the Bible? Okay, anybody ever ask a question? Why believe the Bible? And people will say, I get this answer. Because it's God's Word. Okay, why believe God's Word? Because the Bible says so. Okay, right? Everybody sees the fallacy of the reasoning. Okay, reason demands it, and the Bible's going to command it that we do apologetics. But we can't just say the Bible's true because the Bible says it's true. And look, the Bible says it's true, and I believe the Bible's the inspired Word of God. Please don't take this out of context. You know, but we need to understand how is it that I can know that the Bible is true? How can I show that the Bible is true? Okay? And I think that's important for us. Not just saying just because the Bible says so. Okay? We're living in a world where people are going to attack the Bible. So, well, you can't believe anything in the Bible. And some people will fall for it. Muslims have the same claim for the Quran. They say that the Quran is true because the Quran says it's true. Jehovah's Witnesses with the New World Translation. You get into the Mormons, the Book of Mormons. And anybody that ever knocked on your door, they come to your door, and they're going to say, well, the Book of Mormon is true. All you got to do is pray over it. You'll believe it. Because the Book of Mormon is true. And say the same thing. And so we can't just leave it at this. And look, I believe it's true. I believe the Bible's God's Word, and I believe it tells me that it's true. But I think there's evidence inside of it that leads me to know and understand and be able to show that it's true. So the Bible commands me to do apologetics. And apologetics, another way to think of apologetics, is worshiping God with our minds. You remember what Jesus said? Remember the greatest of the commandments. Remember the greatest? Ask Jesus. Remember, every time they're getting with Jesus, they're going to try to fool him. The scribes and Pharisees. So they come to him and they say, okay, which one's the greatest of the commandments? We're going to get him now. They're all great. And what does Jesus do? He answers. He said the greatest commandment is what? The greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Then he says the second commandment is like the first. And that's what? Love your neighbor as yourself. But notice what he's doing. He's bringing the whole thing in. He's bringing the heart, mind, and soul all in together with this. He says we got to love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind. And he said we need to be able to do that. That's coming the words of Jesus. We're commanded to defend the Christian faith. 1 Peter 3:15, which is where we get the word apologetics from. Peter was a fisherman. Remember? Now, Paul was a theologian. I mean, he had studied, and he had philosophy, and had degrees, and everything else. And Paul's a prolific writer in the New Testament. He has good, but Peter writes two great books too. And Peter is a fisherman. Y'all get it? But look what he says. He says, but in your hearts, set apart Christ as Lord. Number one, make him Lord of your life. Then he says, always be prepared to give an answer. This is to give a reason, to give an answer to everyone who asks you, and give the reasons for the hope that you have. And I love this. He says, but do this with gentleness and respect. Do this with gentleness and respect. William Lane Craig, a great apologist, and I use tons of his material. And he's entered into the world of academia, and he's been debating these world-famous atheists, and he's been putting them in their place. As a matter of fact, the word from atheists about William Lane Craig, they said William Lane Craig is the only person we know when it comes time to debating that he will put the fear of God in even an atheist's heart. Okay? And now, the thing is, and he says this, and I love what he says. He says, the better our arguments are developed, the less argumentative we are. Does that make sense? And so we're to do it with gentleness and respect. So he says, always be prepared to give an answer. Always be prepared to do that. Okay? Then, Paul also says, he tells us 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, he says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought. Think about this. He wants to take captive every thought. Now, that was one of the reasons I wanted when I was talking to this guy. When he said the universe began to exist 13.75 billion years ago, I could take that thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. And we could talk about the existence of God. And he says, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We are commanded to think correctly. I mean, really, there's good thinking and there's bad thinking. We're commanded to be good thinkers. He says, do not be conformed to this world, Paul says in Romans chapter 12. He says, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Now, somebody asked me, my wife will tell people, they'll say, what does your husband do when he teaches? And then she'll say, and he'll tell people that he's in the mind renewal business. And I think it is. I think we're in the mind renewal business. And I think one of the things of training up disciples is we're training them with their minds. We're training them to think. We're training them to love the Lord their God with all their heart, with all their soul. And I'm telling you, I saw that this morning during the prayer time. I saw men who were dedicated to that. It was something that was really motivating. But notice this, by the renewing your mind, so you may discern. Discern means that you can understand, that you get it, what is good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. Acts chapter 17, Paul. I wish I could go through the whole book of Acts, or the whole chapter of Acts chapter 17. Paul, when Paul's been into Thessalonica and Berea, been kicked out of those cities, and they send him to Athens. And he takes a ship to Athens. He gets into Athens. And he's waiting for Luke and he's waiting for Silas to join him there. It says Paul was waiting for them. He was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue. Get this, he reasons in the synagogue with the Jews and the God-fearing priests, but as well as in the marketplace, day by day, with those who happen to be there. And Paul goes through, and you know what Paul does? He goes through arguments for the existence of God. Then he gets at the end of chapter 17, he gets to, and God has appointed a man, his son. And he's proven this by raising him from the dead. And here he is, he talks about who God is, and he gets all the way to the resurrection. And I think it's Paul telling us, it says some people believe, and then he turned away, but some believe. Okay? An example from Luke chapter 20. Do you remember the story in Luke chapter 20 when Jesus is asked by the scribes and the Pharisees, and they actually sent their little disciples to Jesus. You remember? And they're being very secretive, and they're trying to catch Jesus. They ask him, who do we pay taxes to? Is it lawful? Is it okay for us to pay taxes to Caesar? Do you remember the story? And so they said, who do we pay taxes to? And then Jesus teaches us something in this. Jesus begins to ask questions. He begins to ask questions, and he's teaching us this, that here's the way we do. Let's learn to ask questions. And so Jesus said, they say, who is it? Is it okay for us to pay taxes? They're wanting him to start a revolution. Because he says, don't pay taxes to Caesar. The Romans are after you. Pay taxes to Caesar. Guess what? The Jews are going to hate him. They got him. They got him in a dilemma. No. What does he do? He gets a coin. Y'all know the story. Whose image is on the coin? They give him a coin. Whose image is on the coin? Caesar's. And it's his inscription. His not only his face, but his inscription. And he says, well, then give to Caesar the things that are Caesar, but give to God the things that are God's. Now, they should have asked a question, shouldn't they? What should their question have been? Where is God's image? Does that make sense? Where is God's image? We give to God. There's an image here, the coin. Give Caesar his money, but give to God the things that are God. There are tithes and everything taught that, but there's more to it than that. Where is the image of God? Where is the image of God in each one of us? Y'all get it? We're made in the image of God. And listen, one of the things that's incredible about our school is we celebrate that each one of us is made in the image of God. And Jesus celebrates it. So give to God the things that are fine. All right. The reason he asks questions is to define the real issues. He wants to define the real issues that are going. Here's some questions. I had those written out for you, or do you have to write them out? I've got them written out for you. What do you mean by that? Somebody's talking about, I don't believe such and such. Well, what do you mean by that? The Bible is full of errors. What do you mean by errors? What do you mean by that? And then now you just sit and let them talk. And I'm telling you, it works pretty well, because we're doing it like Christ. Then you ask the next one, well, how did you come to that conclusion? What is it that made you come to that conclusion? And then the third question, have you ever considered this evidence? Have you ever considered, the creation of the universe? Have you ever considered where the universe came from? Or how the universe got here? Or have you ever considered, and the list goes on. So a really important question. And here's the thing that I think is important, because you come across people who are just belligerent. Does that make sense? Don't want to believe, have no point, all they want to do is make us look bad. Okay? And they try to do that. That's what their job is. So here's a good question. If Christianity is true, would you become a Christian? You'll be amazed how many people say, well, not even if it's true. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? They're pretty stuck in their worldview, isn't it? Some people are committed to their worldview no matter what the consequences. You see that with Jesus. You see it with the scribes. You see it with some of the Pharisees. You see it with some of the people that were around Jesus. And he dealt with that. Romans 1, and I'm not going to go into Romans 1, but Romans 1 really tells us that. It says, God will give them over, and the old King James would say, to a reprobate mind. You want to live in the lust? You want to call the things that are God's not God's? You want to say it's something else? God says, okay, have it your way. To the point to where you will not be able to discern truth. Then he goes into the illustrations about that. All right, so Romans 1 actually tells me that. So here's some objections to absolute truth. Now I've got these written out for you. Okay, right? Now listen to this, and I want you to get this, because this is really pretty simple when you think about it. And remember, we're called to be thinkers. Look at these objections. Number 1 says there's no truth. How would you respond to that? How would you respond to that? What's that?
Is that true?
Is that true? Right, yeah, is that true? What if, you can write the responses down. I'm not going to put responses. I'll lay out this. You can't know truth.
Do you know that?
How do you know that? Yeah, you get that. You see this? These are called self-defeating statements. And by the way, we see them everywhere. I read books that are the whole book is self-defeating. I've seen books that are written that talk about the Bible with a postmodern mindset. And postmodernism, postmodern literature is called deconstructed literature. They look at everything as deconstructed. It's whatever you want the literature to mean, that's what you make it mean. Okay, it's called postmodernist deconstructionism. Okay, and they'll say that this is why that's the way you read the Bible. The Bible's not true, it's just literature, and we can make it mean whatever we want to. And the whole book's written on it. Well, the whole book becomes self-refuting, doesn't it? Because I can apply his principle to his book. Does that make sense? And say, well, I'm taking this, and everything you're saying is wrong. Because you're saying we can make whatever anybody writes, what anybody says, and make it believe whatever we want it to believe. All right, what about this one? All truth is relative. All truth is relative. Think about that one. All truth is relative. It's just almost like it's a matter of opinion. Is that a relative truth? No, that's being given to me as an absolute truth. If you say all truth is relative, what about the statement itself? What about this one? You can't know anything for certain. You get it? Well, we certainly wouldn't be able to know that then, would we? Okay? You see how all these are? And then this one, no one has the truth. Well, certainly whoever makes a statement doesn't have it, obviously. So that one. What about this one? You should doubt everything. Indeed. Certainly should doubt this, shouldn't we? So you doubt everything. Now, I'm telling you, this is the kind of stuff that's being thrown at our students, and we want them to be thinkers. Some of them even reject the idea, the idea of self-refuting ideas. And it blows me away that somebody can't see that it's true. All right? All right, here's what we're going to do. We got two things. I've got John Lennox, Professor John Lennox at Oxford. And then I got Professor Richard Dawkins, an Oxford professor. Both these guys are professors emeriti, or emeritus, emeriti, I guess. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right, emeriti? So we've got Professor John Lennox, triple doctorate. Okay, triple doctorate. When he walks around Oxford University, people say he's the only man who walks around the university who has more letters after his name than in his name. There's like 5 earned master's degrees. He's got 3 doctorates from Oxford and Cambridge. Okay, I've got a picture of he and I together. And it's a picture I keep up, and I got to spend some time with him. So I've got a picture of us together, and the students go, "Who is that?" And I'll say, well, "That's John Lennox. You're going to learn about him. You're going to see a few videos of him. You're going to read some things that he's written." And I said, what I like about the picture, you put us together in that picture. It represents 3 earned doctorates from Cambridge and Oxford. Really? I go, yeah, no, he's got all 3. But he's an amazing man, amazing Christian. We were at a dinner, and he had just debated Professor Dawkins. And he'd done this debate, and he really came away doing really well in the debate. And a young student gets up and comes up to him, and we're eating dinner, and he's sitting across from us, and people are with me, we're there, and this guy comes up to me and goes, "Oh, Professor Lennox, he's just idolizing Professor. he's easy to idolize." And he says, "Professor Lennox, you did such a great job in the debate, and you really put him in his place, and you really zinged him, you really got him." And Professor Lennox stood up, put his arm around, and goes, "Oh, you're kind of missing the point. We're not trying to just win arguments, we're trying to win souls." What a thing. And I'm thinking, and this guy's on my side. And he is, just incredible, loves the Lord. And then Professor Dawkins, of course, he wrote The God Delusion. A book whose central argument of the book is a flawed argument. It's easy to refute. William Lane Craig refutes the book in about 3 paragraphs. It's really pretty amazing. And then people show it. And he hates Christianity. He goes after Christianity. He says, Christianity's got to be outlawed. The whole thing, he goes into it. And he calls God nothing more than a delusion. And yet, his argument is not only invalid, nothing follows from it. Anyway, so Lennox says God exists. Professor Dawkins says God does not exist. They can't both be right. Everybody get that? They can't both be true. So, not to lead you astray or anything. What about this one? You shouldn't impose your moral views on others. That's big today, isn't it? You shouldn't impose your moral views on others. What about this? Is that your moral view? Do you see this? It's an imposition of a moral view. Look, morality is either real or it's not real. Okay? And morality is either good or it's not good. All religious beliefs are true. This is what's being promoted too. You can believe anything you want to. All your beliefs are true. As long as you believe it, that's all that matters. What about this? My religious belief is that all religious beliefs are not true. Okay? Y'all see how this works. We've got to be thinkers. And being good thinkers is really what we're called to do. So we get to the idea of, does God exist? Does God exist? Does God exist? All right. Here's what I want you to think. And this is written on the back of your page. The back of your, the second page. Think God. Notice I've got it as an acronym. Think God. All right? You have good and evil. The G stands for good and evil. Okay? Or we could call that the moral argument. The moral argument. And really the moral argument is one of the strongest arguments that you'll ever use because everybody understands the idea of morality. And we don't really fully understand morality necessarily on how we treat other people, but we understand morality when we're mistreated. Does that make sense? I understand morality better by the way people treat me than how I can treat other people. I may do something that I think is okay to someone else. I may steal something from someone and then justify it in my mind, well, she can get it up. Okay, but if I'm the person being stolen from, that's not what's going through my mind. All right? So good and evil, the moral argument. We may get your moral argument, we may not get the whole thing. Origin of the universe. How is the origin of the universe? Where did the universe come from? Okay, and I think most people are, astonished to see what modern science is actually saying about the origin of the universe. Okay, and they're trying to avoid where the evidence leads. They're trying to come up with other things. I mean, you think about everything that's going on with like the show The Big Bang Theory. The whole universe was in a hot, dense state nearly 14 billion years ago. Expansion started. Wait, the Earth began to cool. Neanderthals began to math, science, history, unraveling the mystery. It all started with the Big Bang. And they're doing this, and even in that little show, the nerdiest guys have been trying to work on a reason for why we can show that there's something before the Big Bang. There are multiple universes. There's string theory. There's all these different things that are there. It's interesting what modern science and where it's going with the idea of the origin of the universe. And that's the argument I used on the airplane. And I've got the argument for you down there at the bottom. Whatever begins to exist, on the second page, whatever begins to exist must have a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe must have a cause. And if you look down below that, I asked the question, what would the cause of the universe must be like? What would the cause of the universe be like if the universe comes into existence? By the way, the Bible has been teaching since Genesis 1:1 that the universe began to exist. The very first verse in the Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's not in the beginning God, it's in the beginning God created. Now think of that highly philosophical statement right there in Genesis 1:1. And then the rest of the Bible is showing us that that's true. I mean, you think about it. Look at it. Here we are. We're in the middle of this creation. And we'll talk about the origin of the universe. I may get into that just a little bit if I've got enough time. And then the next one is design. The design of the universe. The design of things. Now, people want to deny design. And I was asking Mr. Keys, he's a biology teacher. And I said, okay, how many of these biology videos from PBS and other things do you show? He says, yeah, I show a bunch of them to the kids. I said, okay, are they made by Christians? No, not made by Christians. And I said, okay, how many times does the word design show up? And he says, I have my kids count them. He says in almost every video, 15, 20, 30 times they use the word design. And then they'll say there is no design. but they're calling it design. So think about the idea of the design of the universe. Now, it's really become a pretty strong argument for the existence of God. Here are three great arguments. We just said the beginning of the universe, that's the origin. We call it the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument. And it's strong. It's championed by William Lane Craig, the guy that I talked about just the other day, or just a few minutes ago. Design is the teleological argument. Teleos just meaning is there purpose, is there design, is there a reason we're here? Do we have purpose? And notice this, if you look at the word cosmological, it's logical. Do you see it? See the word logical in there? There's a logic to the cosmos. The cosmos is the universe. Teleological. There's a logic to the design. There's a purpose. We can actually see it. And then morality, moral argument, which I think is a very strong one because people are dealing with it. Just yesterday, as I was preparing for this, going over it one more time, and had one of my friends there with me. The kid knocks on the door and asks a question dealing with this. The question that somebody had asked him about the moral argument. And so it's very, very strong. So, the cosmological argument says, consider the universe. Either the universe has a beginning or it has no beginning. Does that make sense? It can't be both. It began to exist or it did not begin to exist. It's always been here. Aristotle wanted it to be here forever. And Aristotle said the problem with that is we end up in infinite regress. We keep going back and back and back and back and back. And he thought that was an impossibility, and so do I. And it says, so either the universe has a beginning or no beginning. Well, I think modern science is going to tell us that the universe has a beginning. Okay? It's either caused or uncaused, if it has a beginning. Now, Stephen Hawking, who just died, he wanted the universe to have no cause. The universe causes itself. But you know what? That's observable in science, isn't it? We see all kinds of things causing themselves, just popping into existence, don't we? No, not at all. So it's either caused or uncaused, and I think we can see that it's caused, and then it's either personal or impersonal. If it's impersonal, it'll be a natural phenomenon. Just nature. That's all it is, just nature. Just nature doing nature. You go see sand dunes, and the wind blew the sand, and the tides brought in things. They're just there. Okay, that's just nature causing it. But if it's personal, it will be supernatural. Now let me ask you, how would you define supernatural? I would define it as something outside of nature. Does that make sense? When the universe came into existence, modern science is that at a point, the universe comes into existence, and if it's however old it is, if you can assign age to it, it's got a beginning. Does that make sense? And they tell us that it had to come in out of nothing. By the way, Augustine taught us a long, long time ago, and looking in Scripture, that we can believe in creation ex nihilo, which just means creation out of nothing. God created the universe out of nothing. And look, it's either, if it's natural, it's an impersonal thing. Well, if there was no nature there, it can't be a natural event. Does that make sense? There was no nature that existed. No laws of nature existed. At the moment of creation, or the moment of the Big Bang, whatever you want to call it. By the way, the term Big Bang is a phrase that was coined by a guy named Fred Hoyle. Fred Hoyle was famous for coming up with the term Big Bang. He was a steady state theorist. He didn't believe the universe began to exist. It's always been here. Always been here. And when all this information came out, he died in 2001, and he died because and right before he died, John Lennox, that I showed you, John Lennox was one of his students. John Lennox is a mathematician. And John Lennox got to see Fred Hoyle at the end of Fred Hoyle's life and tell him, because Fred Hoyle said, okay, I see the universe began to exist, and I see the implications of it is strongly implying God. And he said, give me some information about the resurrection. Now, don't know if he came to Christ or anything, or can't say that, but he got to hear it. So I'm going to say I think it's personal, because I think the the event, whenever it happened, is a supernatural event. And I think it's easy to say it's supernatural because there was no nature there to begin with. Then all of a sudden, boom, here we go. Okay? Now, I want you to see this. I've got a couple of these quotes for you. Here's what Robert Jastrow says. Now, Robert Jastrow was an agnostic. He wrote a book called God and the Astronomers. He was head of the Goddard Institute for NASA. He sat in the same seat that Edwin Hubble sat in at Mount Wilson Observatory. You ever heard of the Hubble telescope? You heard that? Named after Edwin Hubble, Nobel Prize winner. Robert Jastrow took his place. An agnostic, could not come to the point, but he wrote a book called God and Astronomy. Look what he says. Astronomers now find they have painted themselves into a corner because they have proven by their own methods that the world began abruptly in an act of creation. Listen to the words he's using, to which you can trace the seeds of every star, every planet, every living thing in this cosmos and on the earth. And they have found that all this happened as a product of forces they cannot begin to discover. He says that there are what I or anyone would call supernatural forces at work is now, I think, a scientifically proven fact. You see this? Okay? Now, he died in 2008. Listen to what he says here. I love this. He says, astronomical evidence leads to a biblical view of the origin of the world. What he says, when I look at the Bible and look at the Genesis account, I see a version of what I'm seeing when I'm looking at the stars. This is a guy who looks at the stars for a living. He understands it. He looks and sees those things and understands the math. He says the essential element in the astronomical and biblical accounts of Genesis is the same. If this was, like John Lennox, the Christian saying this, it might not have as much weight, I think. But it could. But Robert Jastrow, he says, look, I don't believe in God. I don't want to because I'm a scientist. And I think, very sad little video, about 6 months before he died. It's one of the saddest things I've seen. He says, I'm a materialist. And a materialist means this. He says, I believe that all exists is matter and energy. And that's all there is. And he says, so I remain a materialist because that's what my science has taught me. He says, but I find that so unsatisfactory. You see, someone steeped in their worldview, maybe they can't see the truth. But notice how close he is. Then he goes on to say this. For the scientist who has lived by his faith, notice what he says, and the power of reason. I'm just going to trust my science only. He says the story ends like a bad dream. He said he scaled, get this, you're climbing a mountain, you're trying to figure out what all this means. He says he scaled the mountains of ignorance. He's about to conquer the highest peaks. As he pulls himself over the final rock, is greeted by a band of theologians who have been there for centuries. You see it? I mean, it's really pretty cool. What a quote. It's just one thing. Now, the sad thing is, and maybe he did, who knows, before he died, but listen to what he says. I don't see any proof that he actually really believed. We look at Psalm 19, the witness of creation. God is always speaking. What Psalm 19 says, and you got it right there on the front page. The witness of creation. What David say? The Psalm said the heavens, notice what I've got both ways, declare the glory of God. The sky proclaims the work of his hand. Day after day they pour out speech. Night after night they communicate knowledge. There is no speech, there are no words. Their voice is not heard. But their message has gone out to all the earth. And their words to be instant. Notice what he's saying. He's saying, look, the heavens declare the glory of God. And no wonder when C.S. Lewis became a Christian, right around the age of 30, 28, 29, when he became a Christian, he said his eyes were open. And he said, now, I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun is risen. And the sun is rising up here for us. As I believe the sun is risen. Not only because I can see it, but because by it, I see everything else. And listen, the testimony of the Holy Spirit is sure. And the reason we do apologetics is because I think it's very important. And I thank y'all for coming this morning. And thank you for listening.